Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Salut tout le monde. Hey everybody. Je suis Marc Dumont. I'm Marc Dumont, and I am your host for Game Over Montreal. You can see Andrew's already here, so he's going to be joining us. We're going to unmute him in just a moment. In the meantime, shout out to everyone in the chat. I am glad to see you. Looks like the chat is bumping, as the youths say. Great game. Fantastic. We saw the Montreal Canadiens win in the shootout. There's a lot to get to, but can we just, before we even get to anything, praise Martin St-Louis for putting Michael Pizzetta in the shootout and Michael Pizzetta doing the Tiger Williams. That was one of the highlights of my life, and I'm happy we were here to witness it. So again, shout out to everyone in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. As per usual, hi Claire, how's it going? We're going to get into it in just one moment, but first, a word from our sponsors. Want to bet? You can do it at Sports Interaction. It's Canada's sportsbook. The hockey season is well underway. You have baseball coming around, and there's always some soccer to bet on, especially since Arsenal is doing so good right now. But real Arsenal fans know there's pain coming at the end of the road. You can bet pre-game, live in-play. There's also a ton of prop bets. It's made for Canadians, by Canadians. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Ontario only, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. I guess we're going to go ahead and unmute Andrew Berkshire and bring him into the show. How's it going, Andrew?
I'm doing great. That was one of the wildest shootouts I think I've ever seen. It was funny. I texted a friend of mine. I was like, shootouts aren't as fun when Nick Suzuki isn't doing like crazy Nick Suzuki things. And then Marty St. Louis is like, you want to do some crazy shit?
Kovacevic, yeah, you want to see something great. Kovacevic, like I as the president of the Jonathan Kovacevic fan club, I don't know about that. Like I was just telling Andrew before the show, I don't think he's ever been chosen for a shootout in his life. But hey, man, it's a fun way to reward the guys that have been working hard. So it was fun to see him there. And I think Tiger Williams himself would be proud of what Michael Pizzetta did tonight.
I 100% agree. And I think this is one of those things where, like, yes, does it remind me of Michael Keaton in the 1989 Batman when he's like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Making these shootout decisions. And I was confused the whole time it was going on. But can you imagine how, like, we talk about our chat being bumping and the vibes being good. Can you imagine how bumping the locker room is right now in the visitors room in Buffalo?
Love stuff like that.
Oh my God. Like, they must be so happy for Michael Pizzetta to figure that out. And for Marty St. Louis to put him in that position. And was it not so stealthily, maybe trying to tank? Possibly.
No, not anymore. It's the best gambit. It's Schrodinger's tank. Like, you don't know until if it happens. Well, yay, it was a good move. And if they don't, well, I was giving them a try. Like, brilliant. It's 4D chess, man.
I mean, no matter what you say about it, right? Like, if you think that he was trying to tank, or if you think that the Canadiens should have tried harder to tank or whatever, like, they weren't going to get a more unlikely couple of choices than Kovacevic and Michael Pizzetta, right? And I got to say, we've talked about Michael Pizzetta a lot on this show, right? About like how he's elevated his game since Belzile and Harvey-Pinard entered the picture. Like, the guy has skill. Is he going to be a huge part of this team going forward? I don't know, but I think he's going to be an NHLer for a good stretch here. I think he's carved out a niche for himself.
Yeah.
He's not just a tough guy anymore. He's actually playing hockey. And man, I love to see it for those kinds of players. And I know people are so focused on the future and the tank and all that, but there's going to be some stuff that we're going to talk about towards the end of this show that I think should give some people some more positivity about where the Canadiens are right now.
Absolutely. And okay, I won't go into my Michael Pizzetta and Laval story. Okay, maybe I will real quick, but he's first guy on the ice every time, and he really got dogged by Joël Bouchard. Like, he worked so hard, and the whole time Joël Bouchard was saying, if you work hard, I'll give you chances, and the chances went down. So it was only once Hull came in, and then he got his chance in Montreal that he really started to flourish. But again, this guy was at practice 15 minutes before everyone, 15 minutes after, for 4 years where he was really not playing a lot. And if we look at his production, Andrew, I mean, that's five, you're looking at 5-6 goals in 55 games. So 8 goals a year on the fourth line. Were you really not getting much action? He's outproducing a lot of the guys that have been playing above him. So yeah, we really need to give Pizzetta a little bit more credit, because Belzile and Rafaël Harvey-Pinard have stolen the headlines, but he's one of the fantastic stories for the Canadiens. And we're going to talk a little bit more about him. And yes, we're going to get to Gallagher's 200th. I noticed the chat. We're talking about Gallagher's 200th. Heart and soul of the team. So happy for that. We're going to talk about as well, Mike effing Matheson. How many spinoramas can he do in one season?
His edges must be so razor sharp. Like, the
Canadiens
smooth equipment manager is on that.
Spartan style, sharpness. Jordan Harris as well. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but I think he's emerging as more than just a really good player on the ice. And also the pride of Saint-Éloi, Alex Maudit Belzile. He's again one of these guys that I've followed for a long time. I'm super happy. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into some more and maybe even talk about a player who might come to Montreal next year or the year after that in the third segment. Let's start with Mike Matheson. Like, who's the last player to change the complexion of the team as much when he's in the lineup?
From the back end, I would say PK Subban. And I'm not going to compare them because I think that Matheson has some of those dynamic qualities, but maybe he's not like the two-way force that Subban was in his prime. But man, they both love the spinorama, I'll tell you that. Matheson is wildly entertaining, and I just continue to love, like, I know his brother, another great guy who I worked with at Sportlogic, and, you know, it's the family having this moment where I know it's not a good year for the organization overall in terms of like, success, but yeah, he's having this fantastic year despite these injuries. He's home. You know, it's such a cool thing. And I just think the way that the Canadiens are moving, if things go the way I think Hughes and Gorton want them to go, they're going to be competitive while Matheson is still a very good player. That's exciting to me because he deserves to have that chance.
And he makes all the forwards look better as well. I mean, he's not just good in transition, he's their transition. And I think if him and Emily, you know, really want to put their kids into hockey, there's no when you look at that pedigree of Emily Matheson and Mike Matheson, I mean, she's got all the championships, right? He's got a little bit of NHL cred. I think their kids are bound to do great things, you know, wherever they end up. Okay. We are going to talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois, though. The chat, some people are already poo-pooing it. Don't poo-poo our third segment. We're going to get there. We're going to talk about it. For me, Matheson, the most important thing, I know we talked about transition, but he's really good at puck retrieval. Maybe not puck retrieval in the sense that he'll go and win the battle, but he's going to go grab it and come out of the corner before you get a chance to reach him. And there's not a ton of players on this roster, I think, that are great at puck retrieval. So just everything about him works perfectly with the style that Martin St. Louis is trying to put in place too. So that's the exciting part about Mike Matheson. Okay, shout out to the chat. We have Paul here who's in Boston. Absolutely. Half my family, the Kennedys, they're all in Boston, Southeast actually. Let us know where you're from in the chat. And shout out to everyone that comes in every night. I see you all there. I see you, King of the North, Claire. Hi, Claire. Alyssa, Adam. There's just too many to name. You're all amazing. We love you. And we're going to get into your questions if you have any. But before that, let's talk about Jordan Harris. What's your impression of Jordan Harris so far in his rookie year?
The one thing that continually comes to mind for Jordan Harris to me is not even hockey, it's leader. He's a leader. He not just a leader on a hockey team. He strikes me as a leader of men, if you know what I mean. And not to exclude anyone who isn't a man, but it's just that's the expression leader of men, right? I think this guy, if he ran for office, would win. He's so smart, so socially conscious, and he's, as a rookie, you have so much to lose in the NHL by speaking out and trying to like be what hockey isn't, which is, you know, standing on a pedestal a little bit and trying to move things forward. And he consistently does that. He's continually coming back to it. He's not somebody who's just going to say one thing and then shy away. And I believe it's going to be a lot more through his career than just words. There's going to be major actions to back up what he's saying. And I'm assuming that he's already making major actions, but like, he just impresses me on every possible level.
I don't know if I can add to that. That was perfect. That's exactly encapsulated. No, seriously, it's not just, to me, two things happen this year is that he emerged as a very good player when we weren't sure about that, but he's emerged as a leader in the NHL. And I think he's already spoken stronger, more important words than a lot of other big time leaders in the NHL. So I'm going to leave it at that. But he's a guy that, you'll eventually see him as the president of the NHLPA, and the Habs are lucky to have someone of such integrity on their roster, someone that's
Agreed.
just so smart, and he's fun. He's a great guy to be around. I know he's one of the nicest guys in the locker room. So the Habs are blessed to have Jordan Harris in the mix. We have Alyssa's in Taiwan. Ni hao. Wo shi zheng hao bu hao, which I believe, if I remember my 9th grade Mandarin, is my Mandarin's not good. That's what that means. Do you know how to say Ireland in Mandarin, Andrew?
Ireland? No.
Yeah. Ireland. That's it. That's
perfect.
Yeah, and Mark is Maka. Yeah. And I remember maybe 4 more words. Wo shuo nimen thing. Okay. So other than Harris, there's another. Is he a rookie? Is Alex Belzil a rookie at that? I think he is.
At 31. I don't think he qualifies, but I mean,
under
kinda.
The Alfredson rule? No.
Basically a rookie, but man, is he ever impressive?
Just like, I know I've gone on and on about his story, but how many people would have given up? You end up, he was with Hamilton doing really good, got that concussion. They obviously, that's the rough part in the NHL. It's like, yeah, we'll take care of you while you have your brain injury, but if your contract runs out, get out. Ended up with like the Gwinnett Warriors. It's a laundry list of ECHL teams that sound like they're made by a name generator. Ended up with the Alaska Aces, and he got benched in the ECHL. Like, you can't get much lower in North American professional hockey. And then worked his way up, not just to the AHL, becoming an all-star. That's cool. He's one of the top 10 points per 60 leaders in the NHL. Like, I feel like Alex Belzil, again, love Rafaël Harvey-Pinard, but Alex Belzil deserves almost as much credit, not just for the story, but the impact he's making on the ice.
Yeah, and he's raising his teammates around him, right? Like we talk about Pizzetta, and
yeah,
it's almost like Belzil got put on the roster, and Pizzetta felt like he was allowed to play more dynamic hockey, right? He was allowed to play more than just dump it in and try to chase it down, try to hit guys, and he still does that, but he also now will cut to the middle and try to take nice shots and
go for rebound opportunities. And
100%. And I think Belzil, what he changed more than anything was the Canadiens, they're on an unsustainable run in terms of shooting percentage right now.
Oh, yeah,
I believe
like 25% for Belzil, 25% for Richard, 25% for Ylönen.
Yeah, at one point Ylönen had like 4 goals in 5 games, and he had 4 goals on 4 shots.
Yeah, Dom is losing his mind right now. Dom.
For sure, right?
So many contracts.
At the same time, I think part of the reason why they're able to have, because those unsustainable things are partially luck and partially players doing things that they can't continue to do for a full 82 game season, right? Mm-hmm. What the Canadiens have done in this stretch more than anything, I think, is they've run 4 scoring lines. They don't have like a line that's just out there to waste time. And it's not like Belzil and Pizzetta don't bring energy, but they're also out there with one mission, and that's to score goals. So when you've got 4 lines that can score, you can surprise a few teams who think that you're not great. And the Canadiens have continually done that. Now, they haven't won a ton of games in March. I think this is their 3rd one, but overall, been playing great hockey. It's been fun to watch.
To Jean-François Hull a little bit for, like, I feel like they always get credit automatically, but every guy that came up from Laval has been ready, from Barron to Belzil and to Ylönen and to even Anthony Richard, Rafaël Harvey-Pinard. They've all looked really good.
They have. And Phil Doucette in the comments is saying Ylönen is starting to heat up lately. Any love for our boy? What I notice more about Ylönen right now than just the production is that early in his career with the Canadiens and early this season, we all knew he had a killer shot, but he wasn't getting
hesitant though.
Very hesitant, and also wasn't finding himself space to get those shots off. Now he is finding those shots, and as soon as he started getting those shots, he started making more plays as well. So his playmaking has gotten better. There was a few times tonight where I noticed he was the guy along the boards in the defensive zone that created a breakout or cleared the zone. Like, all of his game has risen up as his confidence has risen in his shot. And I think that's going to be really important for him going forward. But I'm really impressed with him. Again, I think he's an NHLer. The Canadiens are going to have some really tough decisions in the summer to make. I don't know if I was thinking about, Mark. But I wonder
you
if
give him a contract, but I'm still not convinced he's a long-term part of this team.
But he doesn't have to be, right?
Yeah, fair.
He can sign like a 3 or 4 year contract, and halfway through that, if the Canadiens feel that they could trade him for something else that they need, they can do that, right?
Yeah.
As long as they're not paying him too much, which I don't think they will.
No,
it's the same situation with with Harvey-Pinard, right? Like I mentioned the other day that I think
he's a UFA though, right?
Yeah. Well, he's still not.
He's a Group 6. No, that's Anthony Shaw. Actually, keep talking. I'm going to look that.
Okay, I was going to say, no matter what, next year, I think that they should try Harvey-Pinard with Suzuki and Caulfield at the start of the season, because I look at what Harvey-Pinard has done on that first line against top competition.
RFA,
is worth trying out. You know, you've got a guy who can forecheck, who can create plays, who can finish scoring chances, with the two guys who already have offensive success together. And Harvey-Pinard's defensive numbers are spectacular, really, for what the Canadiens are. So and I got some pushback on that.
Like, relative this season.
Yes,
everything is
100%. But like, I got some pushback on that, and people saying like, well, you know, he's not a guy who's going to be like winning Stanley Cups in the first time. Like, no, but he can play there right now. He's playing there currently. And if you have to move him down the lineup in a couple of years as more talented players graduate, who cares?
He's versatile too. And you know what I love about, like, I'm still a little hesitant to say, oh yeah, this guy in the first line, because I look at a first line and I'm not sure Rafaël Harvey-Pinard deserves to be there. But when you look at the deficiencies between Caulfield and Suzuki, it's really getting to the net, right? Like, their scoring chances are coming from around the hash marks, and there's not a ton right down in the crease. And obviously, that's what Rafaël Harvey-Pinard does best. So, yeah, there might be a nice little chemistry mix there. Hey, we got people in the chat right now from Brisbane. Again, hey, how's it going, AD? How's it going? Kirkland Lake, which is actually where they make everything at Costco. That's just like, there's a little, there's
the Kirkland brand.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. I want to talk about Gallagher now. I'm so happy for him, because I know this has been a frustrating season, and last year was a frustrating season, and people are souring on him. Listen, like, there's a reason that Benjamin gave him that contract. It might have been a little short-sighted, but no one's going to say no to a huge raise after you've been underpaid your entire career. Let's not forget, Gallagher was the best value player in the entire NHL for almost a solid 6 years. But let's forget about all that. How good is it to see him hyped and happy again? Because that's just something that we've been missing this year.
100%. And man, the injuries he's gone through the last 3 years, and even before that, you know, when Weber blew up his hand with a slap shot from the point, like just the stupidest bad luck injury streak that started with him. And like, yeah, some of it is because he plays so hard and he goes to the tough areas, sure. But that is not why his hand got blown up twice. One by a shot from his team, one by a shot from the other team. Like, that's just bad luck. And that's what started his difficulty scoring, right? As he was coming back playing with a hand that wasn't really working in the playoffs in 2021. Made some personal sacrifices, I would say, in those playoffs to continue playing. I think he blew out his groin in the first round or something like that. He was still playing
just
in the
casually.
Just
blown groin in the first, you know.
Yeah, ridiculous. And he continued to play at a high level. And when
Andrew, when I'm out of chapstick, I call an ambulance. I'm that's just want to put that in reference there. Yeah. No, it's great to see, and it's great to see him get that intensity back, because you almost saw him the last few games. He deserved better. First of all, this year, he's the guy who's creating the most high danger chances per 60 still. I know people are down on him, but the luck hasn't been there either on top of the injuries.
No. I think, what did he shoot last year at even strength? He scored
0%
one goal
at one point.
I think he scored one goal at the end of the season, but it was 1 or 2% at even strength. And
this is a guy
that's just not Brendan Gallagher.
Led the league in even strength goals for about 4 years. He was right there he was above Matthews, and then his hand got exploded real quick. And but still, yeah, Brendan Gallagher deserves all the love. Big fan of him. So, hey, Gary's from Punta Cana right now on the beach enjoying.
I'm a little bit jealous of that. Nice not gonna lie.
I mean, NDG is pretty nice. I don't know if you saw, but the snow dump where all the rats live, right on Moncton. Yeah, it's almost gone. So that, yeah, NDG is looking a lot better than usual. I also want to give some praise. Actually, you know what? Can we talk about Jake Allen for a second? Because I
Yeah.
think that he's been good overall this season. But here's a statistic that I pulled out tonight. Did you know that since January 3rd, Jake Allen has let in the first shot of the game 48% of the time?
Holy crap.
I mean, it's not true, but you believed it. You believed that. Okay, you believed it.
So you lied.
Yeah, I lied. Blatant lie. But
You're like,
I know
I
you,
researched this.
I know you, Andrew. And usually if something's off, something would have, you would have a little ding, ding, ding. He does allow a lot of goals in the first shot. He was great in the shootout. Fantastic. But man, there's something about the start of his games that's just off.
Yeah, it has been a rough stretch for him too. I mean, the last 3 games coming into this one, he had a 60% save percentage against Colorado, 66.7% against Florida, and then 8-10 against Boston. Where like, I honestly think Jake Allen was the difference between a win and a loss against Boston. Like,
yeah,
Jeremy Swayman was fantastic, and Allen was very much not. But man, I'm happy to see him have a good game. I know it wasn't a great game, but he was the second best goalie tonight. But I thought he was solid in the shootout. The guy has swagger in the shootout. He does. He forces opponents to make the first move, and that's such a brilliant thing for a goalie to do. Like you're putting, it's game theory, right? So it's like you're forcing them to make the first move. That means all the pressure's on them. So you're just reducing it down to 50-50. And most times the players will leave, they'll give something away. So yeah, no, I think he's even more calm than Carey Price in the shootout. Yeah. I mean, he moves less than Carey Price in the shootout, right? It's one of those things where like, is it on purpose or is he old? But I will say
that's one of the things I ask myself every single day. going to the pharmacy and forgetting what I want on the way home. Like I really hope it's because I'm old. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we talked about a little bit before the show, his patience and not biting on moves. Mm-hmm. It really aids him in the shootout. I feel like where people could expose him a bit more is just come in real fast and shoot. But if you're trying to deke on Jake Allen, like, it doesn't work very well.
No, absolutely not. No, he's got that positioning down pat. All right, we got Trinkas from snowy old St. John's, and I'm assuming we're talking about Newfoundland here because he didn't go SIINT, which is the New Brunswick one.
Right.
I'm a big fan of Jake Allen. Most of the main reason the Canadiens even made that cup final was because Jake Allen, like we forget this, but he floated the Habs during the season. Price was absent for a huge part of that season. So, and what I love also as well, he knows the situation he's in. It's not easy. Like he's been eased off of being a start. Like he's essentially the anti-Jordan Binnington because he's nice, he's supportive, he's not a dick all the time. He's the perfect guy to have around someone like Samuel Montembeault. And his wife's fantastic. Like the whole Allen crew's fantastic. They represent New Brunswick so well. So really happy to have him on the team. But maybe you sub him in like 5 minutes into the game. moving forward.
It's like the opposite of, remember back in the day, this is like way long ago. It was like the first year of the shootout when the Maple Leafs like pulled, I think it was
they gamed it?
Vesa Toskala, and then they put in Curtis Joseph just for the shootout because they were like, Joseph's better in the shootout. It's like a 40-year-old goalie coming in cold.
His knees, you can hear them like cracking as he's...
And I don't think he made a single save. It was like...
no, not warmed up. He's got like arthritis of the 90s running through his knees. No. That's Galaxy braining it.
Yeah, and Kay brings up that Jake Allen is also a fantastic quote. You remember the hot and horny quote that he had earlier in the year?
That was amazing. That was bonk. You go to horny jail, Jake Allen. Sorry, yeah. So I also want to talk about, we tossed this around before the game, but I'm kind of starting to get what people mean or Dallas fans are saying about Dennis Gurry. Oh, by the way, I'm sure Kay already mentioned it in the chat, but you got to like and subscribe.
This is true.
Or else. I know where no, sorry. I'm being nice. Just like and subscribe.
We'll find you.
Tell your friends about it. We have a fun community here. This is what we love in the chat is every time we go to do a show, we're like, man, can't wait to see who's in the chat and who's talking. So big fan of everyone here. And we love how much you support us. Seriously, it is much appreciated. Yeah, as King of the North says, it's super duper horny jail for Jake. It seems like a fun locker room, though. I'll give them this. Like, it could be a disaster of a season in terms of morale, but I feel like they're legitimately just having fun through it because they knew from the start. Oh, by the way, they're not eliminated from the playoffs. They were gonna be, so there's still a
That's
chance.
right.
But I feel like it's a pretty darn healthy locker room.
Well, we already discussed this, Mark, that they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year because of all the similarities between them and the 1970s Dynasty Canadiens, remember?
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
why they're not eliminated yet.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There's Levla played on that team, and Jordan Harris's girlfriend, Cody, who she's great. She also won a bean pot with I believe Northeastern. Her dog walker is called Guy. So there are so many similarities
So
between
many.
so many. Okay, Remily brings up a good point here. What about Primo? And someone asked me earlier, they asked us earlier, what was the point? From what I heard, is there's been a little bit of a promise like, hey, Caden, we're going to give you some NHL starts. And I've heard that from two different places, nothing super concrete. But do you remember when they first brought him up and they basically just dogged him? They're like, nope, you haven't started in a month and a half, so you're not getting a start, which is like, cool. Like, why am I here? And he's been playing really well for the Laval Rocket. Let's not forget, despite him perhaps not even reaching, like, he's a 7th round pick, but he got hyped. He's still 23 years old. There's still some developmental runway there. So from what I heard, the goal is to get him into a few games, and he can even go back to Laval, I believe, this weekend and not miss a game. So, maybe there's been this is pure rumor mongering on my part, make that very clear. But could possibly be that him or his agent were like, hey man, like, we got promised when he was 20, he was supposed to be a backup in the NHL. So that's what Marc Bergevin essentially said to convince him to sign, was just come here and next year you'll be Carey Price's backup. And that obviously didn't happen. So that's what I heard about Caden Primo.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. It's been a long time in the American Hockey League, but at the same time, you kind of have to earn it too. And I know he had a fantastic run with Laval last year, but he's been pretty inconsistent this year. Like, decent for stretches and rough for stretches, and that's kind of been the Laval Rocket all year, right? Every time they seem to get some momentum, the Canadiens have 15 injuries and have to call up their first line and
Right.
second line, so it's kind of tough. But I think Caden Primo now is in, like, if he has a future with this team, he's got to very quickly start locking horns with Sam Montembeault and challenging him for starts. It can't be about, like, charity starts, which I don't know if this necessarily is, but let's hope he makes the most of it against the Flyers. Although I know a lot of people want the Canadiens to lose, just for Primo not to look like he did last year in the NHL. We'll say that.
As Noel, again, he's like, Bergevin, short-sighted. That's the second time. Don't make me start defending Bergevin. I do it once or twice a year. I don't think I'm going to do it right now. I think it's time to give him a legitimate chance, just because, I mean, hey, what do you have to lose here, first of all? And it really felt unfair that they kept him up for over, essentially he didn't get games in for all of February or January. Like, that's pretty rough on our young goalies. I remember
It's
him
tough.
when he was sharing the net with 3 goalies, and that happened in Laval for way too long. And he'd be like, man, it's really hard to build momentum when you're sharing the net with 3 goalies. So I know that he wants consistency. Again, I'm just purely speculating, but I get a sense that there's been a little bit of pressure from the Primo camp, like, hey, give me my shot. Phil asked, does Sean Farrell play the Philly game with Primo? Yeah. So just to burn a year of his contract. Okay, no matter what, Farrell's going to play a game this year and burn a year of his contract. Like, that's kind of the Charlie Lindgren, Jordan Harris, Cole Caulfield deal.
Well, I think he burns a year no matter what, right? Because the slide
I think he
rule
has
is
to
only
play
for
though, no?
teens. I think the slide rule is only for teens. Once you're over 20, if you sign a contract, it's going to burn, whether you play in the American League or the NHL.
Well, he can't play. Okay, and that's the other part. He can't play in the American League because he signed his contract after the trade deadline. So everyone that's wondering, like, is he going to go down for Laval? Absolutely not. But
they can't paper him down, right?
It's too late. Yeah, exactly. He signed it after the trade deadline. That was like, that's when they have to paper him. I will say this though. As much as we've hyped him, and I've been just like, chucking that goal in the choo-choo train, you're really looking at a guy that's got like middle 6 potential. Like, I wouldn't even consider top line for him right now, but you're going to see a guy that's very, very, very good with the puck in the sense that he's not necessarily someone that'll react. He's anticipating, and you have to be pretty smart to play with him. So, finish the season with the second highest points per game, 1.53, actually tied with Logan Cooley, to give you an idea. And he was playing with an all-star roster, we'll say that, with Harvard, but I still think that his game will be better with NHL players that are a little more, adjusted to high speed, to cerebral hockey. So that, I think he's one of those players where professional hockey will do him some good, but I don't expect him to ever go beyond like the second, third line type of potential.
No, and that's fine, right? It's the same kind of thing as
fourth round pick, like
Harvey-Pinard right now. Does Harvey-Pinard have first line potential? No, he's just playing on the first line right now. That's what happens with rebuilding teams. Now, Sean Farrell might get those kind of chances over the next year or two, but
you might as well, right?
Yeah, you just want him to be the best player that he can be and impact the lineup where he fits, and that's probably second, third line. And if you have a player, if he hits as skilled as Sean Farrell is on your second and third lines, nothing to complain about.
Absolutely not. And that's what you want to get. Well, obviously you want to draft stars, but for the longest time, the Montreal Canadiens weren't getting those depth, or not just depth, but second, third line players from the draft. They actually had to go out and trade for them. So It's encouraging that you're getting some there. Okay, Kay mentions here, Jake Evans, just heart. Obviously, me too. Love me some Jake Evans. Did you see his little bunny hop before Gallagher scored? It was fantastic. But you mentioned before the show, Andrew, that Evans and Gallagher are showing some pretty darn good chemistry together, aren't they?
Yeah, it makes sense, right? It's just two guys who will outwork everybody else, and maybe also two guys who the conditioning isn't quite where they want it to be, but leave it all out on the ice every single shift, right? At the end of every shift, they're probably dog tired heading back to the bench. So maybe teams, if they watch that, can catch them a little bit at the ends of shifts. But man, both of them have been incredibly impressive the last couple games here. I think as much as Gallagher gets all the love for scoring goals, Evans has been facilitating everything on those lines. Like, I look at Evans, and I didn't want to talk about it too much on the last show because it was an 8-2 win. You got to just focus on the positives. But when I watch Jake Evans on the third line, and then I watch Christian Dvorak in that same role, it's wild to me that one of them is getting paid 3 times what the other one is, and it's the wrong one. Like, I think Jake Evans is probably paid a fair wage for what he is.
1.9, I think, but,
man, he is so much better than Christian Dvorak. And I don't say that to trash Dvorak, because he was put in a situation he should never have been in when the Canadiens acquired him, and they're like, hey, can you replace Phil Deneau and just Jesperi Kotkaniemi? But like, Jake Evans has stepped up.
Bergevin, short-sighted?
Continually.
No.
Noel, in the chat, here's your cue.
I find he's feisty too. Like, one thing that happened before the injury is that the Habs early January were just bring out your dead, bring out your dead. I'm not dead yet. You will be in a moment. That's what it was. It was a Monty Python skit. And I feel like at that point, and I'm not blaming Nick Suzuki, because I think he's done really well in a rough year, but there was maybe a little lack of leadership perhaps from some of the others. And Evans really stepped up, not just his intensity. Like, he was the guy leading the charge and showing the other veterans, like, you guys can do stuff too. And I think he picked up right where he left off, which is great, because despite all this, Andrew, he's at risk of losing his job. He's one of those guys that could get shuffled out, and he's well aware of that. He knows he has to work harder. So someone asked, I think last show that I was on, do you necessarily keep Evans in the mix? And I say, yes, but I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or two he's not. So that means he has to work harder than everyone else.
Yeah, and he seems game to do that, right? And I think we've seen that continually whenever he does get a chance. He can play center. I think he's also willing to play the wing. We saw that in the playoffs in 2021, right?
In Laval, he did a little bit.
Yeah, he just seems like a guy who, no matter what challenge you put him to, he will find a way to rise to it, even if he's not the most skilled. He is just incredibly hardworking, and he does have some skill. Like, if you put together,
pull it out once in a while, eh?
Yeah, if you put together a highlight pack of Jake Evans' goals, you could probably convince people that he's there's a lot of beauties in there. You could probably convince people he's a 40-goal scorer just based on
absolutely.
the stuff that he pulls off. He
Put
is
some like techno in the background or something, and then go. But why does every hockey highlight like they finish it? It's beautiful, and they're like, now let me just put on the shittiest music you've ever heard. I'm old. Okay, I would just like
Skrillex every time.
Exactly. I don't want to hear a fax machine having sex with my toaster. I want to hear. No, I guess Pink Floyd wouldn't. You know the only hockey highlight video I ever did? I put Johnny Cash, When the Man Comes to Town. That's the remember the Carey Price one?
Yep, it's a good video.
It was I did good with that one, yeah. So do we get to oh yeah, I also wanted to defend Mike Hoffman. I have a whole paragraph. Do we have time for that?
I mean, we have time for whatever the hell we want to do, man.
Okay, well, stop shitting on Mike Hoffman, okay? He deserves better. Honestly,
100%.
Andrew, if it wasn't for his reputation, I don't think he'd be getting dogged as much as he does right now by all the fans. I know it hasn't been the best year, but in terms of like value, what he gives you, at $4 million, you're getting a guy that probably should have closer to 20 goals, but you're not going to get much more than that in the NHL for a veteran, right? That like you're not going to get a 200-foot player. Mike Hoffman can't identify his goalie in a police lineup, but he's done pretty good for the Habs, hasn't he?
Well, here's the thing, like we also have to give credit to like Mike Hoffman wasn't signed to the Montreal Canadiens to be on a rebuilding team, right? Marc Bergevin thought he was filling holes. I know.
Short-sighted? No.
I know. He thought he was getting like the contender back together. They just went to the Stanley Cup final and lost. Everything was going to be fine. Which I don't know how he thought that, considering the losses that they had and the fact that Carey Price wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
It was, man, we could talk about that summer forever.
He wanted to save it was saving his job. That's what it was. Like,
right.
Bergevin actually had done pretty good not to do that, but essentially Jeff Molson said, like, buddy, you have one more year. That's it.
Yeah, and like Hoffman signed basically to be a power play weapon, third line scorer, where you could chip in like 20 to 25
Shooting
goals
talent,
on a good team that could support his deficiencies. Instead, he was just kind of laid to waste and exploited, or exploit is not the right word, but like exposed. And every team was able to pick him apart over and over and over again. And the fact is, since this season started, he has changed his game incredibly. Like we talk a lot about Josh Anderson and how well he's changed over the last
had an evolution too. Yeah,
Hoffman has done the same thing. Not as much in terms of what you see on the ice, right? Like Josh Anderson, you could tell because he was such a one-note player. When he adds things to his game, you're like, whoa, Josh Anderson can do that. But Mike Hoffman, here's the thing, no longer a risk defensively. He's decent like defensively now.
For most of the season, he was actually rocking like a 58% expected goals, where the second Habs player was at like 32% roughly. You know, that was another lie. But yeah, Mike Hoffman for the first half of the year was probably their best possession player. So
yeah, like his main drawback right now is that he takes too many penalties, which I think he took 2 tonight. So
yeah, like he was getting this. I don't want to be mean, but every time I see him, like I saw him angry at the penalty, but he's got a happy face carved into his face, so it looks like he's smiling. But sorry, still have a little bit of congestion left inside me. Okay, James asks, what are your thoughts about the Fanatics NHL deal? And I have very heavy thoughts about that, but I'm going to let you go first, Andrew.
I mean,
c'est de la merde. Sorry, go ahead.
You better get used to hand washing.
Yeah. Like
in a river. You want to keep your jersey. Because if you throw that thing in the dryer, it's coming out in strips.
It's like, do not machine wash, do not hand wash, do not dry clean. Like, just, okay.
Here's what I would say. Like, if I was going to say, like, let's give Fanatics a chance, this is my message to
garbage.
Fanatics, the company. Okay, number one,
close your company. Sorry.
Number one, fold your company. No, number one, maybe invest in some quality materials and stitching. Number two, you want to make a big impact on like fans buying jerseys. The specialty jerseys that come out for like Pride.
Everyone's like, oh my God, that's so nice.
Yeah, the ones that are designed by local artists all the time and everyone goes gaga over.
Yeah,
make those not practice jerseys. Make them full jerseys. I know it's expensive. Sell them for expensive prices.
Yeah.
We can't have this situation where you can only get those jerseys via auction. That kind of sucks. sell those freaking jerseys. Negotiate what you have to with the NHL to make it happen. Spend the money to make it happen. That will actually turn, I think, some fan ire into like something positive in the NHL. But man, you got to be able to have clothing that doesn't fall apart.
And here, actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to show you something. I didn't plan this, but I have it right here.
All right, Mark is off screen now, so I'm entertaining everyone.
The fun part about them is that, like, look, this is the quality of the stitching. Okay, so do you notice that there's like just a there's a tooth? There's a tooth.
It's not great.
This isn't all their stuff. Like every single thing is poorly stitched. So now you have I got so much free Fanatics gear, and like I would just walk out of the Bell Center, chuck it in the garbage, walk out because you can't even clean it. You literally cannot clean it once. C'est de la merde. C'est de la merde.
Canty Canadian in the chat says Fanatics jersey cleaning instructions: do not wear.
Yeah.
Buy it, frame it, and never let it see. Like get the glass. Like I've got. Oh, no, it is behind me. The Carey Price one that I have up higher that you can't actually see on stream. It has that glass on it that's like anti-glare and like UV rays can't go through it.
Yeah, you have to remove oxygen from there too. Like
yeah, put it in the Louvre.
It's got to be at 7% relative humidity at all times. So get your barometer. Okay, for example, I got this t-shirt for free for going to UFC 124. Okay, this was a free t-shirt from the UFC that you got as a member of their fan club. Okay, I'm not ashamed to say it. I met Dana White. People thought he was Moby at Archambault. Anyways, and this is a free t-shirt that they gave out to like 50,000 people, and it has held up. Fanatics legitimately oxidizes on contact with oxygen. So it's kind of a telling sign. I think Nike owns every single big league in North America right now, except for hockey. And obviously the NHL would have taken it. And Nike was just like, I would rather not do that. That was their option there. And they could have gotten it for cheap. So yeah, I just
not great. And I see Phil Dissett says that he bought one Fanatics Montreal jersey and the fabric glue, the fake stitches, the lettering fell off after 3 months, and I bought it brand new.
It lasted 3 months?
3 months?
Wow.
That's the longest lasting Fanatics jersey that's ever existed. They're going to put that as a
testimonial on their website.
A screen cap of that is going to be on the Fanatics website tomorrow morning.
It lasted 3 months. Oh, man. I feel like the NHL is just so out of touch with. And the line I showed you, you know, the C with a tooth in it, that's their Mitchell and Ness line, which is actually like high end. Like that sweater is probably $150. By the way, if someone wants it, send me a DM on Twitter. I wore it once. I'll send it to you. But all the rest of my gear, just to give you a better idea, I washed it. Obviously, I wore it for like 30 minutes with the Habs. And I was going to the Salvation Army to bring a bunch of stuff. And as I was sorting, because you don't want to bring stuff that's not nice, right? You want to make it like pretty much new. Almost all the Fanatic stuff ended up in the garbage because it wasn't like it wasn't worthy after one wash to go to the Salvation Army, and that's I think essentially, you know, tells you all
Evan
you need to
B
know
says that Phil's jersey lasted 3 months because shipping took 2.9 months. Oh my god! Okay, Mark, should we talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois because we got to talk about it?
Can we just keep slamming Fanatics?
Just wait until they get a sponsorship with SDPN and we have to like redact this entire segment.
Oh yeah. Just like the news, like Game Over Montreal has been canceled, you know, due to creative differences. But all right, yeah, we can move on from Fanatics.
Oh my god, Evan, that was too freaking good.
I never had to buy their stuff, but if you go online, you'll see like the New York Rangers and there's an Islanders logo, which is just like it's not even just missing a little bit. It's not even on in the dining room table, you know, it's not even in the living room. Okay, so thank you. Okay, I'm already choking. I already have a little bit of the cough left, so that almost killed me. Thank you, Evan. Pierre-Luc Dubois on 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliot Friedman mentioned. He essentially, listen, every other hockey insider has mentioned it, but no one of Friedman's ilk. Like I'd say he's still probably the guy that has the most ears. Like LeBron mentioned it, Johnson mentioned it.
He's got that gravitas, right?
But Kiprios, yeah, it's just Elliot Friedman. Essentially, if he says it, like that's locked in. So he said 95% chance. I love that, just 95% chance. So Obviously, Dubois wants to come to Montreal. The thing is, they've been talking about a trade. Dubois an RFA this year, so he could sign a 1-year extension, come to Montreal. What are your feelings here? Because a lot of people are saying it's the time to move. And when you look at it, there's rarely been, let's forget that he's a francophone. That's great. But there's rarely been a guy in his prime, 25 years old, center, or 24 either.
24.
Yeah. So controllable contract, so you can sign him something hopefully long-term. Like, it's almost too greedy to say, let it expire and we're going to come get you. You have to, but if he's really truthful about this, that's the route the Canadiens have to take.
Well, here's the thing, because I don't know if you saw like the details of how badly the Jets screwed the pooch on this one, because apparently these two teams have been talking about this for like over a year. Yeah, he's an RFA. The Jets could theoretically extend him for a year until he's the UFA. Here's the other thing that could happen, though. The Montreal Canadiens can talk to Dubois' agent and say, we're going to send an offer sheet to the Jets for $4.19 million. That's not a lot for you, but it's going to be 1 year.
And you're going to
now the Jets could choose not to match and get 1 second-round pick. That's it. Or they could match it. Then they can't trade him for a calendar year, walk him to UFA, and then lose him for nothing.
That's such a gangster yet like dick move, but I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah. So what I heard is basically the Canadiens are going to say, like, you can get a second-round pick, and we'll give you a B prospect.
We'll give you a Riley Kidney, like, you know.
I wouldn't even trade Riley Kidney.
Okay, now we're getting a little greedy here.
For sure greedy, but like, Logan Mailloux. You can take Logan Mailloux.
I would actually, I'd actually hold on to him there in terms of like for right-handed defensemen. Very few, but yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Who's getting greedy now?
Yeah, well, exactly. Fair. Well, hey man, they need, again, Matheson Bowie's the only guy in Laval that shoots right, but essentially, it's not gonna take it's not gonna cost an arm and a leg to bring Dubois in, which is the exciting part. I really like what you're doing. Do you think Hughes would do that though? Or would he just kind of like, oh, by the way, I don't know if you read section 42B of the CBA, it's pretty interesting. You might want to read up on that. Or do you think?
Do I think Hughes and Gorton would exhaust every tiny bit of leverage they have to get a player they would really like on the team? Yes. Gorton actually did almost like this.
Even sour relationship, yeah.
Yeah, with the Jets, who cares? Like, you're not going to get
have an airport.
Yeah, exactly, right? So they have to drive Dubois here, but Gorton did almost this exact thing with Adam Fox, right? Mm-hmm. They could have pushed the envelope in the offseason and got him a different way. He only wanted to go to New York, but instead they traded a little bit of a sweetener to get him there earlier. I think that's what's going to happen with Dubois, but the thing that, like, I'm not 100% sold on Dubois. I still think back to that the way that he quit on Columbus.
Yeah,
I know I'm not the only one. The way he quit on Columbus bothers me. The way that this whole Jets thing has gone down. Yeah, it's about wanting to come to Montreal, but it still kind of bothers me that it's played out the way it has.
Jets fans have a legit reason to be kind of like, fuck you, man.
They should hate this guy. Yeah. And I know poor Liz Hood, who hosts Game Over Winnipeg, he's one of her favorite players, him and Laine, which is ironic. But like, Jets fans should hate this guy. They should absolutely despise this guy. But he's a near point per game, 6'4", 24-year-old center in his prime. You add that to Suzuki and Doc, but the big thing that makes me excited about this move is not necessarily Dubois himself, who I know is a good player, but I've heard nobody who has dealt with him really likes him that much. But what I've heard through the grapevine is if they get Dubois, who's the big player, who's already a safe, established player in the NHL, that will give the Habs brass latitude to draft a small player in the top 5 to 7 spots, which is where they are right now.
Like a Michkov or something?
Like a Matvei Michkov.
Second line. Boom.
Yeah. So, like, there've been consistent rumors that they were going to pass on Michkov because of the size issue, which I'm not sure I totally believe. It's like, maybe it's being talked about, but the talent level is so high. But if they get Dubois, that gives them the space or the size difference in the lineup to take Michkov. It's worth it on that alone.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I don't trust Bobrov it's not his style. He just likes big European players, but you can't. Mishkov would be the number one pick last year and probably next year too. You know, if he was in those draft years. Trinka, it was a Trinka or Trizak. I think it was Trinka. I was saying I can't wait to get my dubious Dubois jersey, my jersey from Fanatics. Sorry, I really want to go back to trashing Fanatics because
it's too easy.
Terrible. I think we're just about done, Andrew. That was a fun game. That was all in all. Right now, the Habs are just in a good, like, as we always mention, and it's always the vibe here. Vibes are good. The vibes are good with the Habs too, and I think you're seeing it with the fans because remember about a month ago, people were like, they're not tanking enough. Yeah, they were always tanking enough. There were some cries that Hughes didn't do enough, like trade Matheson, trade Kirby Dach, trade Suzuki, and I think we're seeing now that obviously they're not going to get. I mean, well, they might, but they're going to finish 4th, 5th in the odds to. So in terms of development, I think they've done pretty good there considering, but it's been a good, bad year for the Canadiens, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. It's like a lot of the things that you wanted to happen in this season have happened. You know, the young players have stepped up. The rookies on defense have been the best players on defense outside of Mike Matheson.
Big time.
You know, I talked about it on stream when they played Boston, right? But like there are games, I don't know if you can say one game can like shape the identity of a team, but if one game could, that game did. You see the positivity that these guys are playing with, the way they have each other's backs, the way like Arbor Xhekaj is out. They don't have that big hammer on the back end to like stand up for them, and they're standing up for each other. You know, like they're playing these teams. This game got really physical with Buffalo, and I don't think they have the size that Buffalo has. No, but they didn't shrink from it at any point. I'm just really impressed.
They're Chris Weidman, and that's not a joke. Like that's actually what we saw from. Remember last year, Chris Weidman was the Habs enforcer.
Yep. When he had like 6 fights in the last half of the season, he was just testy.
And I'll be honest, I mean, it's not an issue in my case, but if I had a pretty face like that, I don't know if I'd want to invite people to punch me right in the face. Okay, yeah, so it was Trizak that did that. So who's obviously named after a delicious cracker. Okay, yeah, Kay says she'd keep Matheson. Matheson's going to be so important moving forward, and I was a little sarcastic this year because I wasn't sold on Matheson coming in, but I was like, man, Habs fans are going to miss Jeff Petrie, like, not missing Jeff Petrie very much, are we?
No, and I think Mike Matheson also, he is helping elevate the young defensemen too. Like you look at
Big time.
Justin Barron and Jordan Harris are trying now after seeing Mike Matheson do it.
Activating
all right.
Time. Yeah,
we can do cool stuff. So I think he's really important to keep around. Like the potential package you would have to get for it to actually be worth it for Montreal to move Mike Matheson, I don't think any team's given that up.
Such a crucial part. Like it's the same thing as when Kirby Dach came back in lineup. He changes the complexion of the team up front. Matheson changes everything, and I think the person who loves him the most is Martin St. Louis because he enables the team to play that kind of not firebrand hockey, but just up tempo hockey, which I'll be honest, we weren't seeing before Matheson really joined the lineup. So, so to me, Mike Matheson, I don't know if I want to say MVP this year because you got to give it to Nick Suzuki just for like surviving. You know, like just the first man.
I mean, he is the straw that stirs the drink. There's no question about that for Nick.
Absolutely. No. He's. I was going to go into like 5 more metaphors there. We don't need it, but no. He's absolutely the glue that holds it all together. And that's the other point. Evan points out. We've talked about this all the time, but say star good chez nous là. He's a Québécois. He's happy to play her Pointe Claire native. So, and if we want to add another skills coach to the roster, we have Emily Matheson. I mean, I know she's busy kicking ass, being one of the best hockey players out there, but you know, there might be a future for her with the Montreal Canadiens.
Not the worst idea. I mean, no, that's absolutely. A family that can skate, man.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah, Nick Suzuki stayed alive. If we did like superlatives there, like most likely to not die.
most likely to stay alive.
Yeah, absolutely. No, hey, listen, I don't want to trash Jeff Petrie too much because he did so much. And I'll say this, everyone soured on him. Being away from your family during the pandemic while, you know, stuff is going down and then it's hard. Really tough. It's very tough. especially there was sickness going on there, and I can relate to that. It destroys your soul. It distracts you from everything. So I hate the way it ended, and I know why people are sour, but Jeff Petrie did a lot of good things for over half a decade here, and he was the best defenseman. I'm sorry, Shea Weber, for 5 years straight.
He was their number one D, and the fact is, the Canadiens got the best years of Jeff Petrie.
Yeah,
and then traded him for the next Jeff Petrie.
What was, I guess, Pittsburgh lost faith in Mike Matheson? Is that it? Like after 1 year, and he was okay.
I think they might be dumb, Mark. I think they're just dumb.
Just Occam's razor here is the gros marron. I agree. I think on that note, that's the best way to end today's stream. Thank you everyone in the chat. Seriously, we love all of you. Big fans. Please like the stream. Please like us. We would like to be liked, and don't forget to subscribe to SDPN. And we might have a little announcement in one of these next episodes, though. So I'm not gonna. Adam does that all the time. He like teases announcements, right?
Teases the announcement. I've teased what we're gonna do, but we're gonna lock it down soon.
Lock it down, and hopefully everyone can participate. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us at Game Over. We have Andrew Berkshire. I am Marc Dumont. You are all a bunch of awesome Habs fans. And okay, Kay says one last quote by MSL, so I'm waiting for that. Oh yeah, about the Tiger Williams celebration. For those that missed it at the beginning of the episode, we were just praising Michael Pizzetta, not just for the story. This guy works hard. And this is one little thing, and I know it's going to sound like a humble brag, but I remember at one point I signed a contract with the Habs, just like a 1-year extension, and so did he. Obviously, we're not the same level of value, but I went to congratulate him, and he turned around, he's like, "Hey man, I saw you sign a contract. Congratulations." And I was like, "Oh wow, like he's genuinely a good guy that cares about stuff." So on the celebration, for those that didn't see it, he scored in the shootout, which Martin St. Louis is just playing with house money, and we love it. St. Louis said, "I didn't see the celebration. The players told me afterwards, but I didn't see it. The guys in front of me were all standing up." So was it just too short there? And they're pretty big. Oh yeah, they're pretty big guys. I didn't see much.
Too funny.
The life of a hobbit. Do you think St. Louis is like he asks people at the grocery store? He brings Caden Gooley with him to the grocery store.
Well, not now. Caden Gooley can't stand up. All of his joints are destroyed. Sorry, Kay.
Those quads, he can bounce, like he can just bounce as if he's on a trampoline.
Jumps.
Just like he never does the far jump, but he get like a cricket, like 47 times his height. Bonne nuit tout le monde. Merci tout le monde. That is it for Game Over, and we'll be back tomorrow. Andrew is hosting tomorrow, so make sure to check that out. Like and subscribe. Thank you everybody in the chat. We love you all. Bonne nuit, and see you soon.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.